8 minutes before we're actually going to start anything. I'm just going to learn how to use okay. Boop. Really curious if anybody's going to come for the live or if everybody's just going to catch it on the replay. But I will wait. I'm early. I just wanted to see what was popping. Woot! Choo choo choo. Choo choo choo. Choo choo choo. Choo choo. But why? Why is Elise? Oh, Elise joined. So we early, but figured early was better than late. Still got 6 minutes before we're popping off.
Hey!
Hey! What's up?
So I think that I got the setup down. I have all this behind me.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. This morning was just like, well, by this morning I mean like I stayed in bed till noon. And then I'm like, I should probably clean my room.
We are in different time zones and we still slept in until the same time. So no worries there. And then I realized that I have my broken phone for reference so I can look at the pictures in the order that we need and make sure that I'm not throwing things on the screen in the wrong order. Yay.
Yeah. I'm like, ooh, this is fun, harsh lighting. Because there's a window to my side. So I'm like, that's better.
That is better.
Yeah. I'm like,
Lighting.
there's specifically a window on one side.
At least you have one
Yeah.
window.
Look at the camera, cry. Almost.
Go. Elise, we text too much. I'm trying to find. There's the outline. Okay.
Yeah. I have it written down. My handy dandy notebook.
Oh, good.
Because I was like supposed to be working. And I'm like, you know what's more interesting than technical documents? Really just anything.
Everything.
So that is a reoccurring problem with my work. It's that literally anything going on in my life is more interesting than that thing that pays my bills. So
Well, someday the things that interest you will be the things that pay your bills and you won't have to worry about it anymore.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty much resigned to just being like, when I finish this series, it'll be like a natural time for me to retire from like my day job, and then I'll just be a really, really cool old lady who's like, because it's like after this series, I have another series. So like, I'll go hardcore into the next series in my retirement. So I'll just be like that old lady. It's like, oh, are you like taking up gardening or knitting? I'm like, no, I'm writing about war.
And sculpting awesome dolls and just being
Yeah,
overall
like this is my village of statues. Damn, now. Hi, come closer. he's adorable. He doesn't quite fit in the same frame as like
Of course.
those guys.
Oh no.
But
So I just realized that our picture-in-picture option went away when I added you into the room.
oh, okay.
Thanks.
I guess that's something like in the YouTube video we'll try to like
I'm gonna see.
listen.
Maybe I can get them loaded onto this other phone and like show them.
Hold them up.
Yeah, does
See, I'll
that?
hold up the head. You hold up like the
Well,
nice picture.
my phone
Yeah.
doesn't do it justice, but like you said, I'll go back and edit it and throw them on there for the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Just ride with that and people can see the horribleness that is my old phone, but that's fine because we're just learning
Yeah.
things as we go.
And this is our first episode.
It's true.
So should we discuss like the concept of the series?
Yeah, might as well. It's time. It's close enough. So, do you just want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Yeah. You're the one hosting it, so
I guess that's true. All right. So this is the first episode of the Ill Will Writing Show, and that's spelled E-E-L because three of us science fiction and fantasy authors have come together to discuss world building and what we've discovered on our journey. And so I'm Arian, which is one of the E's. This is Elise, she's the other E. And then in the next episode, we'll meet Lindsay and talk about her world building. So I met Elise through Instagram. I think we probably got hooked up through a follow loop or something. And
yeah, I think so.
because I would just like go in and like follow people, whatever. And then all of a sudden I saw one of your sculptures on my feed and I was like, is this a picture of art she likes or what's going on? And then I looked at your page and was like, oh, this woman is a genius. And so um, we did an interview, gosh, last year for my website
Yeah.
talking about your series and stuff. And I quickly, you're the reason why I started world building. So I'll let you introduce yourself now that I've pumped you all up and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I'm Elise Thornback. Arian is one of my like best friends I've met off of Instagram. So like doing this series with you is really fun because like we just talk a lot about this stuff anyway, and it's like let's just film this and share our discussions on writing. And so I'm writing a sci-fi fantasy series. And it's very heavy on the world building because I started off with this world, Fae, when I was 12. And just like, instead of like evolving to completely new concepts, I just kept building and like workshopping the same world until it no longer had any of those like telltale amateur like cliched writing stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely one of those people who just puts a ton of time into world building. Kind of slow to write, but I have a novella out there. I am working on my novel, which I hope to finish like by the end of this year or early next year. It's in the editing phase. So, and I sculpt all my characters, or at least most of my characters, to finalize their design. And so today what we're going to be talking about is world building through character design, and that is making your characters consistent with the geography and the climate of the world you create. And that really goes back and forth. Like, you can start with the character, you can start with the climate, but you want to, as an author, you want to know what you're doing. You don't just like, oh, I really like red hair, so I'm going to go over and give this like main character red hair. And desert cultures are so engaging. I think this redhead should go in the desert. Um, there is one ethnicity of people who were from the desert and had light skin and red hair. They ended up moving out like to, I think, like got on a boat, went to like South America, and then like through there to, I think, the Polynesian Islands. I think that's where they ended up, and then uh, nearly died off when like Europeans came in with like diseases they weren't accustomed to. But like normally red hair and desert don't go together, and when you do that as an author, uh it does come off as like a plot hole. So part of this is avoiding those plot holes that just make you look like it's like, oh, I think this looks pretty and I'm not going to question the logistics of this. And then the other side of this is that when you do put a lot of thought into having your character look like they came from the climate you intended them to, it adds diversity and it adds another layer of your story. So if someone's out of place, that means there's an immigration story somewhere in their family history, and that's interesting. As the author, you should know about that, and that's history. And it's history you don't actually have to specify in an info dump. You can hint towards stuff more subtly this way, and it just adds depth to your story without you ranting at people about it. So it makes things feel a lot more real and engaging.
And that's something that I noticed a lot. Because when I graduated high school, I kind of stopped reading, which is almost terrifying for an author to say out loud, but it just, when you work and stuff, it just doesn't become a priority anymore. And The Tale of Essex was the first novella that I'd been um, given. I think I downloaded it while it was free, and I couldn't put it down, even having a busy schedule and all of those things. And I believe that because your world building is so strong, without that ramble, that's what really makes your writing special and holds my attention even through, when I got to beta read your novel, it's 500 plus pages long, and I just could not stop listening to it because I had to listen to it because it was so long. But I wanted to power through it. I couldn't put it down. So it's definitely I believe that those things, when they're not thought through, do create plot holes just because you're not thinking about those things. And when something's absent from your thought processes, it's going to be absent from the storyline. And you might not even catch it, like the author might not even catch it, but some really attentive reader might. And something like that, inconsistencies or unrealistic aspects might be what helps, well, not helps, but what makes readers put something down. So I'm, yeah, I've learned a lot through you just from our conversations, and the world building aspect is super important.
Yeah. I mean, I find that like as authors, like there's so much thought that goes into a story that's not actually going to make it onto the page. Just because you're planning this out in the background and something that gets like the most minute mention, you have to make sure it's like, does this make sense? It's like, am I being consistent here? So and this is one of those things where it's like your character's like, so everyone's face tells a story of the places your ancestors have spent a lot of time. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, like there's no location on earth that makes you a better human being because your ancestors spent more time there. And our faces just say, it's like, hey, my ancestors came through this region and they settled in this region. And that's a beautiful history. Like we tend to just like have our universal beauty standards and dismiss that, but if you can really embrace that, then there's so much you can do with your characters as well as like being happier with yourself. So I think I'm going to start on my examples now.
Yay!
Because I have three types of examples here. The first is how to design a single character that is a cross between two different regions. So how to design a character that speaks to what region she is from, or he is from. So this is Zara, and if you look at her features, so all my characters have a lot more Neanderthal in them, and you'll see that like in the height of the features, on like how I proportion the height of the features, but I still have to make them look more like relatable enough that we as human Homo sapiens would identify with them. So Zara is, let me get her in good lighting. Yeah, this is the window's like there. So
I mean, I can see her pretty well.
so it's a little bit harsh for her, but I do have pretty pictures of her. So Zara is where she's from, a region where the savannah meets the desert. And this is important culturally because the savannah in this world is a very fertile land, so a lot of like the big family farms are. So it's a very like conservative area, being more rural. That's a trend you see a lot in society. And meeting with the desert, which is more trade based because it's between the people who need to buy the stuff and the people who are making it. And you can't travel like willy nilly through the desert, so you get trade routes. Mountain regions work the same. So you have the trade-based, more like equal society, where it's like, conservative, but still more merchant class, as opposed to here are the people who own the farms, here are the people who work on the farms. So she is a city girl, and so she has a good mix of features from like either of those two cultures. And that plays into her outlook on life a lot. Like she's a very rebellious woman when she is young, and then as she is older, she's dealing with the consequences of that, but like has accepted that like this is the result of her actions, and she doesn't want to be saved from her actions. She's accepted that she is the one who got her there and she's the only one in charge of her life. So love her. And you can see the more,
See.
she has like a narrow nose, but it's sort of like the narrow nose of the desert, as opposed to a broader nose of the savannah, and she doesn't have like the pixie-ish nose of the savannah, so her nose is across. Skin tone is across. She's very light, very much like Middle Eastern mixed with sub-Saharan. And a lot of this, when you're designing a character, it's good to like identify your regions and then look into all the different kinds of people who are indigenous to there. And there's a lot more than like we acknowledge at first, because if you think like savannah, you still have the grassland, like that's a grassland, and you have the plains in North America. So it's not like you have one kind of people there. So there's a lot to work with. So you still have to do your research.
How much time do you spend researching outside of like writing and sculpting and all the other things you do? How much time would you say?
I don't know. I tend to like watch documentaries when I sculpt, because I want something like moderately interesting, but like that I don't have to stare at. So that tends to feed into it. But it's like, yeah, like casually look this up and like gain an appreciation of like what features actually like help in this environment. Cause like your beauty standards don't matter in a fantasy world or an alien world. Like they don't exist there. They're products of your culture, and these people don't care about them. They have their own beauty standards, and it's like their own balance of what's advantageous to the environment versus what's a display feature. So, yeah. So I guess I'll go pick up the next example, which is a single group of people as they migrate, like a single tribe as they migrate from different locations over time. I just knocked over her daughter.
Of course.
So we'll start with Essex. Oof. So here's Essex. You mentioned the Tale of Essex.
That's actually the cover still, right? This is the cover for the
Yeah.
Essex?
It's big. So he has like a nice scar here. You can see like the very pronounced Neanderthal like profile, which I mentioned. Oh, that's
not
the next one.
Oh geez.
Yeah. Sorry.
Pride.
So this is talking about the next example. We have the Teftani. So the Teftani were people who broke off from the larger elite society, and this is the elite of the region. So they broke off from the elite society and moved into a jungle oasis. So you have the elite, large nose, stronger, like more rugged features, living in a harsh environment. And then I'll stand him up. Going to the next example, which is the one you picked up, you have the Teftani. So the Teftani living in a more humid environment, they get to have dainty little noses. And
Oh, geez.
yeah. So the Teftani broke off the elite, so they moved from the desert into the jungle, and their features changed. They get darker because they're not like covered up as much, and you're never going to find like bare skinned people from any jungle. Like, that's not. You can find fair skinned people in a desert. Desert's very much a free for all, really. It's very interesting. You need the larger nose because it's a very harsh environment, like freezing at night, sweltering during the day. People tend to just like, you need to condition the air so it's not killing your lungs. But other than that, there's a lot of cultural adaptations to surviving that, and a lot of genetic stuff you don't see. Like, I'm Ashkenazi Jew, and we have so many like little medical quirks. We have our own type of sickle cell.
I never knew that.
Yeah, it's fun. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you don't see, and that'll go into your writing, but the stuff that you do see goes into your character's appearance. And so with the move into the jungle, which the Teftani did when they broke off the rest of the elite of the region, they changed quite a bit. And it's an easier climate on them. So, like, the very alive, fertile region that they're not out in the sun all day, and it's not that hot, it doesn't get that cold. So they look more refined because they don't have to be as hardy.
And then, so
Like,
Essex was from the society that was like the base of the Teftani before they broke off, right?
yeah.
My understanding.
So he was from the elite of the region, so which are a desert people, and so the Teftani moved through there, settled in this lush, beautiful oasis, and stayed there. And then the Teftani moved out. So one more before that, I have another from that region and time. So you see the same type of features. So, and they started, if you're looking at the extra eyes and like the bright colored eyes, they did start genetic modification on their population. It's not just like, and then they evolved extra eyes. That's normal. No,
so
they're,
anybody with extra eyes in your world has been genetically modified scientifically, right?
yeah, yeah. There was a group of scientists that moved in, and the Teftani like made nice with them. So, and where did I put her? She's over there. So eventually, I have heads all over the place. That's very normal.
The life of a writer is an odd one. We all have our things.
Yeah. So eventually, the Teftani move out of the jungle. A bunch of them, well, some stay in the jungle, but like the bulk of their population moves back out into the cliff face bordering the oasis to defend their land, and they return to the harsher uh, features, regaining the Neanderthal qualities as before. Because it's like you're going to swing back to more familiar territories before you randomly get an evolution, like randomly get a mutation that's never been there before. So it's a return towards the desert appearance, now with the lovely modified eyes. So
And were the modified
she actually
is the a product of evolution from moving, or was that genetic modification also?
that was straight up genetic modification. So the Teftani are my angels, which are fun. A lot of them are terrifying bird monsters, but like they'll occasionally like have a child that's like passable as a human to go talk to the humans, but they're all over the place. Sometimes like they just look like birds, which is a wonderful risk for the quarantine. So I think Amarna in The Tale of Essex like looks almost like any normal bird. She's fun.
That was probably, she was so fleeting, but that was one of my favorite characters just because seeing the effort and the thought you put into what kind of thoughts a bird angel would have and like her take on society and what was going on in that
Yeah.
scene, really, really beautiful and incredible. So, yeah, I just, the amount of thought that you put into everything, um, has really taught me to put more thought into everything because I used to just feel like, hey, I'm telling a story. Like I didn't think about the characters or really where they were from. It was all just like um kind of winging it and not really that thought out. And then once we did the first interview last year, I was like, oh geez, I need to step up my writing game just because that's how like good stories are written more than anything. And so that I really like what you've done with calling a certain facet of your society angels and having it be this like not what you would picture an angel to be when you hear that word and it just you're like, oh yeah, I'm on a
Yeah.
different planet, it's fine.
Yeah. The angels are I'm particularly proud of the angels because they're they're not like a biblical type of angel. They are bird people and they act how birds would act, and birds are not the nicest of creatures. So, and yeah, Serafina here, she is manic, and she is manic because she's a bird. Uh, Birds are just very flighty and like very high strung. Same with like any herbivore, like that personified as a human would just be neurotic. Um,
When did you decide this? Like what brought you to the point of like, okay, birds are flighty. If it was a human, it would be a neurotic, anxious thing.
Having birds as a kid, like I grew up with a house full of animals, and our birds. We had conures, um, and they were mean.
Oh no.
They hated us. Like I think they liked my mom, but like the rest of us are like, human, you're back. Why are you here?
Oh geez.
Scream at us every morning, expect us to like hand feed them, making direct eye contact. They would just like take the food, drop it on the floor, look at it, look back at us, and like scream at us to pick it back up for them. They're like human slave. You are not the master of this household. You are just my servant. Pick that up for me.
Oh my God.
So,
That is. How long did you have birds then? Was that like your whole childhood?
yeah, they were around for like, because they were around before I was born, so they were around for like another 15 years, at least
That's
after that. And yeah, we took in a dove once with like a broken wing. Absolute sweetheart. Conyers blinded them.
oh
So
my God.
yeah. My older sister was so mad because she saved this dove with a like broken wing. She was nursing it back to health, and the conure is like, "You're not one of us." So yeah, birds
Wow.
are
I
territorial and like angry, and they pick at everything but never finish their food. And like there can be nice birds, but like their overall bird culture is mean and spiteful.
I
Like
never
they love very strongly and hate even stronger. So
Oh, I never knew
my
how realistic that whole part of the society was on Frey. That is so amazing.
yeah, so this is just like basing it off of like birds I've witnessed. Like my friend who like had a farm, she's like, yeah, these birds keep beating each other out. They always like these chickens always have to have one chicken they abuse.
Ooh,
Um, so like birds, they can be absolute sweethearts. Um, but also they can be so cruel. They don't have war, so I guess they have us be there. But like they can still be very cruel. So
oh geez.
my angels are not nice people.
They're one
They're
of my
birds.
favorites though. And it's really interesting because I've gotten to this point in my life where I try not to consume very much dark stuff and I'm like, no, well, Elise is the one exception because it's wrapped in all this layers of like personal connection and social stories and all of this, that those little aspects of like the angels being mean and all those things, without getting into to spoilers, it balances it out for sure. It's not like too dark in one specific area. It's a good mix you got going.
I mean, I feel like I like dark humor. I don't like grim dark stuff that it's just like relentlessly beating you down, and it's like, what's the point if there's no hope? Um, like so there always has to be that balance there to like make the media consumable. Um, but yeah, I do tend to like my darkest thoughts. I'm like, that would make a beautiful story.
You just have the
Like,
right punchlines and the right spin on it, and
yeah.
it's the most amazing. You're right. I forgot how funny because it's been a while. Um, Even some of the like really dark scenes, there'd be like one little one-liner or whatever, and I'd catch myself laughing out loud. So it's quite the art form.
Yeah, my it's a multi POV story for the novel, and like the first POV is Giovanna. Uh, before I'd like gone back to edit, it's like I forgot how funny he was because I'm like he's a very problematic character, but then I read his lines, I'm like I love him again. Like he's a creep, but he's hilarious. So yeah. Um, and I guess like fitting with like the whole designing one character for a specific region, designing a tribe that moves through various regions, and designing a third example is designing multiple ethnic groups that have the same kind of environment. So let's say it's like you have a mountain area in the north and a mountain area in the south, and these are two different people moved to these areas, but like the regions are very similar. So for this example, we're doing caves.
Ooh.
So I have two main regions where there's subterranean peoples. The first is in the jungle, and there's cave systems under there. Like under the oasis, there are cave systems, and you'll get the Teftani, and then you'll get the descendants of the elite scientists who moved in there. And then you have in the tundra, there's cave systems, and you get the rogue Nook, which are the common people there. Their tribe of theirs broke off and moved underground.
Mm.
So, because we just talked about the Teftani, I will show a subterranean Teftani.
Ooh.
So, this might be out of order from what I sent you. So, he's very,
well, we're just kind of.
very glowy.
Oh, you know what? I have this picture on my phone that I'm recording on, and not the phone that I'm using to show the people. So, we'll edit that in post.
Yeah. So we have that you can probably see his features. So he has the old Teftani before they moved out to the cliffs, from like straight to jungle to underground.
Mm.
So he has those sort of facial features. Loss of pigment in his eyes and his skin, but not his hair. And you have the display feature of the extra eyes, because the reason for people in this region moving underground is that the scientists were creating their experiments to be subterranean creatures on account of they're in a jungle oasis bordered by freezing a mountain range and a desert. So it's like, how do you keep these people contained? You make them, incapable of going out in the sun, and then that way they can't get far. They can only travel at night. So, and clearly not the features of the tundra there. Very like life and thin. So,
and how did you what kind of research did you have to do for how people would adapt to being underground, if any?
I honestly like troglobites, like how various animals and insects adapt to being underground. Alligators were one of those, but like I looked into how animals were evolving to this climate. Like some of them, like they'll lose pigment, their skin will become very like translucent, their eyes, like he has a display feature for the eyes, which is that's not the environment. The loss of pigment is the environment, because pigment takes resources to produce, and if you don't need to produce it, then it's like a waste if no one's going to see it. you don't need to produce it. Um, and if you do produce it when you're not using it, then that would be a display feature. And like display features happen in nature, things where you're like, that looks like it hinders you more than it helps. Um, that always has happened in nature. So it's a balance of like what's actually helpful um, versus like what fits the climate. So he's actually the brother of Hydra. Yeah, I said that right. Because it's Hades and Hydra. So this is his brother. So you see the family resemblance there.
That, and obviously, so this is Hydra, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously he does not spend any time underground.
No. So, but that was family resemblance, different environments. There's also, let me get another way to approach this. Whoops. So this was fun because I have translucent clay, so it's translucent eyelids
Oh,
over
wow.
the eye. So this is the eyes starting to like go away because they're not being used.
Mm.
Um, so they've been grown over. They haven't shrunk yet, but a lot of like the subterranean species I was seeing had like he's completely lost his pigment. You can't quite see it with this camera, but he does have like veins showing through his skin. A little bit of pink on the lips, but so completely lost his pigment, and his eyes are more residual than the others. The eyelids have sealed up because he's not using his eyes.
Oh, that's so crazy. I never would have
So,
even like,
so this is like pitch black, living in the pitch black. Um, Hydra, Hades has a bioluminescence filled cave. So he still sees.
mm.
Just doesn't have to deal with sunlight. There's still light there. This is living in the absolute pitch black.
And then
So
other senses would be heightened too, wouldn't they?
yeah. Yeah, like a heightened sense of smell. So this is yeah, he's part Teftani, part elite from the desert. So he does have like the stronger, like more curved nose from the desert. Fit that, but still pretty like gracile features of the Teftani. Um, so just realizing one of his ears broke off. And I'm like, oh yeah, that happened, and I didn't glue it back on.
Well, doesn't affect the story at all. So I just had the realization that even though live streams can go for 4 hours, I'm pretty sure you can
Mhm.
only upload a IGTV if it's an hour. Um,
Okay.
so we have about like technically 9 minutes before I'd have to like stop and create a part two. And I just wanted to let you know that because I I should have started screen recording this just in case some kind of technical glitch happens. And from here on out, I'll definitely screen record as well because there's so much here, and we've only really scratched the surface of everything, and that's why we're gonna do a monthly meetup to talk about world building. But I'd hate for all the information to get lost. I know that
Yeah.
the few people here got to see it, but it's too rich to not share with people. So before we break, I'll ask you, are you
Mhm.
wanting to come back for like a further discussion?
Yeah, yeah, we can do a part two because I feel like I have a couple more examples for like underground because I need to get to like the fun Rogue Nook underground. Um, and I have still have like Rodai, so um, yeah. So we can break and do a part two.
We'll break now, and then I'll
Yeah,
make sure that everything
but
does the technical things that it needs to
uploaded.
do, and then we'll come back probably like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. So intermission.
Yay! Okay. Boop. Gotta invite Miss Elise back into the Ill Will Riding Show. Woo! So we're back for part two. I'm waiting for Miss Elise to hop on, and then yeah. So this was the one of the ones that she showed from the underground living, I do believe, but maybe I'm wrong. And then this is that underground living that she was showing with the translucent skin and the eyelids show like sealed up. Just since I didn't know I couldn't do this while we were um so this is Zara from the part one. And let me get out of here in case that's why Miss Elise can't join. Gonna have some water out of my goddess mug. This is a lot of fun, and I'm really excited about the fact that we came together to do this. If you missed the introduction to the part one of this two-part episode, then to kind of fill you in, my name is Arian Naomi Omid. I am Arian Writes on all social media platforms, and we are here today with Elise Thornback. Um, to talk about world building, and we call it the Ill Will Writing Show, spelled with two E's. I just can't say ill will. That's too hard for my mouth. Because I'm Mary and she's Elise, and then we have one other author, Lindsay, who does fantasy work, who is going to be on during the next episode, and then we will all get together once. Why is Elise unable to join? Excuse. Maybe she has to be here first. I don't know, man. But we weren't done. I did say like 5-10 minutes and it took like two, so we'll just wait. But yeah, it's we're here to talk about writing. We're here to talk about how character design helps world building. And while I wait for Elise, I'm just going to say things that I've said over and over and over again, and I will say in my own individual episode when I introduce who I am as an author and not just as a facilitator. Um, Elise Thornback is the very special author who got me to start world building. And so, yay! So I wouldn't have started world building if it wasn't for Elise. She completely changed my entire game around, and I wish that I was anywhere near as thorough as she is. But that's why everybody has their own superpowers, and we're all different individuals. Yay! Oh, hooray! Perfect. So we're back. As I was just explaining, we're talking about world building through character development. In the part one of this first episode of the Ill Will Writing Show, we saw lots of different examples, and now we are on to like underground type of characteristics that characters may have in their physical features. So this is Elise,
Mhm.
my star of today's episode, and we'll just jump right back into it.
Okay. So we had the Teftani underground, and then we had a Teftani elite hybrid underground in like pitch blackness, whereas eyes had become residual, uh, which happens a lot with like troglodytes, which is so interesting. Like they become transparent, they lose all pigment, their eyes like either get like black and tiny, or sometimes in like low light conditions, like the eyes get large. In no light, the eyes get like shrink to like becoming residual, like the skin just like grows over them. Um, and they, because it's no longer a sense that they need.
Mm.
Um, and I'll have another person from that family because it's a family of just genetically altered creatures that scientists keep in their basement. So fun.
I love sci-fi so much.
Yeah, it's like these are the relatives that we don't talk about. Live in the basement. So yeah, this is a great uh statue for this discussion because we have the before and after alterations of the before and after the genetic modifications. So we have the a adolescent from the uh, desert people.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
like he's much better in like the photo shoots than in lighting. Um, so he's 14, and you have the natural and the modified. So he has uh, pink and red eyes. He's got albinism, which most of the original creatures from the experiments do. So he's very like early, I guess, design model. Um, so he still has that. He's a throwback to when everyone was kept underground. And he has extra eyes as display features because what's fun in this like sci-fi hellscape is that the psychic creatures controlling everyone have extra eyes to let you know they're always watching.
Mm.
So functional extra eyes. So like they never actually need to like blink and take their eyes off of you.
So on these creatures with the display features eyes, do they work or are they purely decorative?
They work. So that's one of the things where it's like, I think it would be fun if you didn't know which set of eyes they were watching you from.
And then
So they can look like they're ignoring you, but like they're still keeping an eye on you.
before we move from this character, why the half and half facial pigment? Is there an explanation?
Because he's a clone.
Oh, okay.
So I figure it's like, well, I'm not good at like making molds, so it's like just to make sure that I sculpt both on and Rodai. I'll split it down the middle. So
And do you just like sculpt half a face and then sculpt the other half of the face and put them together?
no, I just like sculpted it and like put the extra two eyes in and then I painted
Oh,
it.
okay.
So like there's the sculpt is symmetrical besides like the extra eyes. Um So it was just becoming leucistic, probably saying that wrong, and having the display features that changed. Um, and so, and then I have one more, which is a, what was it? It's like a intermediate stage.
Mm.
So this, the same scientists taking a person. I put him on a long Furby body because I'm just so long Furbies, and I'm like, those are glorious. I want to try to make one, but not like by a Furby face. So you have the loss of pigment in the eyes and the display features, um, a softer features for the people of the tundra. So they're just like they just have these like round, soft features of like they're very burly. They're very burly in build. Their faces are cute, but they're fat. It's like oh, and then you see like bodybuilder under that. It's like huh, would not mess with that. But gentle giants. That's basically their design.
So
So you see starting to lose pigment in the hair, but lost pigment in the eyes. So this is like the scientists trying to put one of those things underground. So like those were cool. We really emulate them. So and then I put it on a furry worm body because that's not relative to the character.
oh,
That is just it's not at all relative to the character. That's just me seeing like long Furbies and I'm like, I want to make one.
I was
But not a furry.
I before we talked about it, because I asked you, I was like, what is this long furry snake thing attached to a head? And you told me about the long Furby thing. And I didn't even question it because it was like, well, if it's a genetic modification, like something the scientists created,
Yeah,
not have
it could happen.
long warm body.
It could very much happen. Like that could definitely happen. But it's not like his character. It's just like, well, I should sculpt this character, and I also want to make a long furry.
Two birds, one stone. It's fine.
So, so body not accurate, face accurate. So soft. Um, and to give you a perspective of like what those people actually look like when they haven't been made into subterranean monsters. This is one.
Oh wow.
So, and he's older, so he has great like Neanderthal-esque features. So, he's so cute.
He is really cute.
The rogue, yeah, the rogue Nook are just adorable. They are the gentle giants and also the soldiers.
Understandable, I
So,
guess. Those giant bodies.
yeah. Um,
Do you have a favorite
so,
species that you've encountered so far along your journey through Frey? And I'm just gonna talk about it like it's a real place because that's what's happening right now.
um, that is tough to say. Like it tends to be what I'm working on at the moment. But I do I do really love like because I'm currently writing from like the art and they're probably my favorite right now because they have like it's a very artificial society because it's just created in a lab. Um, but it's a fascinating society and a very complex one. So I really, really, really love the art. Um, they are genetically altered monsters, made to dethrone humanity, but they're so endearing.
That's a,
This is
oh,
my stories in a nutshell. It's like from a human perspective, you know these might not like these are probably the bad guys. They're really lovable. Um, but yeah, and then the uh Mikari, which are the other group of subterranean people, uh they're very, very, very religious. Uh Everyone else at this point is in Korean history is atheist. They're like hardcore on their religion. Uh Sometimes they're zealots. They're very strange. Um but they also have an interesting political function where they're like the middlemen between like their gods and the royal family. They're like, we can negotiate for you. Um, they very much don't want to lose their position as like being the negotiators. So, and they have like long family ties with the uh, royal family. And also, they are competing against the art. So it's like, I love these two groups that are like, there's not enough room in the world for both of them. Like, they know one of them's going to outcompete the other, and there's this tension between them, but like, they're both just both glorious. And I think that's always very important. Especially when we're talking about like creating different ethnic groups like fantasy races and stuff. You don't want to have good guys and bad guys when you're drawing lines between ethnicities. That's never going to be good. Um, because when you do that, like uh, you're taking a stance and like making a statement that like people who look like this are bad people. People who look like this are good people. It's always very important to have two or three or four groups of people who are doing what they think is right for their citizens. Like they're not just doing acting out of hate, they're acting out of like the best interests of how they see the world. So yeah, that's critical. And you definitely like want to put equal attention into like when you make these morally great societies. Like every society has its flaws, and you shouldn't look at that as it's not like you're making fun of a society for like showcasing its flaws and that it's imperfect. It's just creating a setting that you can have a story in. Like if your starting setting is like a happy utopia where nothing is wrong, then you realize you have to leave that setting to have a story. And you can't really write much in that setting. Like in Lord of the Rings, The Shire, there's nothing particularly wrong with the Shire. They can be a bit snobbish and like, um, but they're you wouldn't have any more than like a contemporary neighbor versus neighbor thing where it's like, you're upper middle class, I am middle class. But wrong. Which isn't which isn't the epic story that you have in like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. So like you do need to build in these flaws into like every society. Like no one society is perfect. uh as humans we tend to range between like absolutely awful and meh, this is okay. Like we need to work on this, but like it's adequate, or we have our first world problems. So
I never noticed before how that could be an issue if in writing if you were like, oh well, there's these very specific different groups of ethnicities and these are the bad guys and these are the good guys. And it's really good that you're conscious of that. Because yeah, I mean, what I've found in life is there's definitely like a good versus evil somewhere somehow in the universe, but most of life is morally gray in the first place. And so when you take, you know, you create this world and you make different ethnicity groups and different territories and then you put some kind of stigma around it like these people are horrible and these people are the good guys and you should be rooting for them, that's not realistic, and then it causes problems externally in the real world. um, and I know that's something that you and I are both really passionate about, is making
yeah,
sure that people are just people and it's about the story. So that was beautiful and I appreciate you for sharing that.
yeah. And I guess I should show you the Mikari, now that I've put them up as like the opposing faction to the art. So the Mikari are in a low light environment.
Oh,
So this means their high priest. So once again, it's like all my statues have this like the very Neanderthal height difference. Like that is bigger than that. So they have the sloping foreheads as opposed to like
uh,
flat foreheads. And you have like the skull goes deeper because it's the skull cavity on Neanderthals is like further back as opposed to like up on top. So a little like back here.
hmm.
Um, so I tried to like incorporate that into like all my characters' designs, but like to varying degrees because it's like across the overall population, you should see the remnants of uh like old fashioned Neanderthal looks.
And so
So
Neanderthal, that was the like human primate before Homo sapien, right?
yeah, it's there's some debate like because they in Europe and Asia they and the Middle East there were Neanderthal populations. In Asia there was also Denisovans, which we know far less about. Um, so but it's like so sub-Saharan African is the only population on Earth that hasn't uh got any Neanderthal DNA in them. They're our cousins. They're not like the species that came right before us. That's probably Homo
Uh,
erectus or a descendant of it. So it's like Homo erectus and then Neanderthals, humans. And then there was a lot of like uh marrying in between different like slightly uh deviated human species. So we have some Denisovan in us and some Neanderthal in us. I think the highest amount is 4% in uh, northern
oh
Spain,
wow.
and most of Europe is, and most of the world is like 2%, and sub Saharan African is the only place where you don't have any.
Crazy.
Because, yeah. So,
What?
and that's like on Earth and like in on Frey, like things went down very differently. That's I guess it's a little spoilery, but
Well,
they have. they have a lot more Neanderthal in them, to the point where they identify as Neanderthal, despite like the fact that they clearly have a lot of human in them. They're not going to talk about that. So
What about the like Earth Neanderthals? Like, was that specific genetic mixture something that you've had with you since adolescence, or was that a new addition as you've been workshopping through this?
I I think I knew that uh like Neanderthals had been incorporated into the general human population already, like when I started. Or I think when I first started this, like I didn't have the Neanderthals and humans thing down. It was just like character designs when I was like 12. I'm like, ooh, the prince. So pretty. My little 12-year-old brain. Like I honestly, the first character I started with was the general. So she came across as a bit of a Mary Sue when she was a main character, because she's sort of like if Jason was an alien and a girl, sort of alien. So she's like I had to change her. Like part of like evolving as an author was to realize that my main character, who was super OP, did not make a good main character because nothing phased her. It's like you could jettison this character out into outer space and they'd be like, I hate this. This is an inconvenience. I'll be back. Back in 100 years to wreak havoc. So they make a very good opponent, but they don't make a good main character because they're just so nonchalant and invincible. Um, so yeah, I started off with the characters, and like I had an alien before I had Neanderthals.
That makes sense.
But I still like they still lingered. Like um with your current character Candy, I told you how I had what became the Reverend Queen. Her name was initially Candy, and she was just like this girly girl who was like just sunshine and rainbows, and she evolves into like this like good wife queen who just seems like the perfect figurehead on the surface. So
Surface. To be discussed later.
yeah.
Um, did you have any other? I know it's not been
Oh,
this part
I have.
kind of short, but who else you have? Oh, and that's a full
He's just like
body.
slumped in his chair. It's terrible posture. This is Chrysophase, another Mikari. So he's my kleptopathic monk. Ain't he cute? When he's like, his posture is terrible.
And so
So
those are the ones that live underground as well, right?
yeah,
And that's why.
yeah, these guys live underground. Just chilling with my statues like a completely normal person.
Don't worry about it. How does
Yeah.
not really related to writing, but how does Mr. Vlad feel about all of the statues around your house? Does he even care?
No, he
That's
doesn't.
amazing. Hi, Vlad.
It's just little he cares.
It's like this is normal. It'd probably be really weird if your house didn't have statues in it at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I get him toys that are like dogs, so he's like, he has his dolls too.
That's
But
perfect.
when I first started making dolls, he it was so cute and so sad because he'd go over and like bring like a toy or like a rolled up sock and like put it next to their head. like I'd come home from work and I'm like, like I trying to remember roommates like, did you put like this toy here or like sock on the couch next to the doll? And she's like, no. I'm like, oh my god, how lonely. Oh, now
Oh,
he's like,
hi, Thad. Sad Thad.
he's like, you moved my
This
toy.
is my toys. Excuse. 10
Yeah,
seconds ago, he was just snoozed out. So that shows you how much he cares about his dolls.
I know. Yeah, his dolls are different. I'm not allowed to. If I move those, I have to play with them.
Obviously.
So
How dare you?
yeah. So yeah. But like it really helps like to sculpt these because I have to think about like I have to make every single feature. So I have to think about it and like spend all these hours like debating uh what they should look like. So I have to have a reason for it. It's not just like, oh, I think this is cute because then everyone would look like a Barbie. And what would be the point of sculpting them? It's always like our imperfections that make us identifiable as people. And like as as a woman, you're like raised to like be insecure about this, but like as an artist, I'm like, oh, this is what makes my art better.
For sure.
I can't, yeah, it's like I can't get to that next level if I can't capture like all the little quirks in a face that make them recognizable as a person. Make us like because when you look at your own face, um, for most of us, it's like picking out things that like don't meet beauty standards and make us insecure. But like when other people look at us, they're honestly just like identifying. It's like you're this person. It's like all these like imperfections make you an actual person that they can identify with. So it's it's important to like include those in your characters because it like instead of like chasing an ideal, you're creating someone who's relatable. So and yeah, it's funny because like I've had with Solerta here I've had so many people just like identify different things about her that they find relatable. Like she has a big nose and like she's heavy set, dark skin, like dark hair, and like such a wide range of people, not just people with dark skin and dark hair, but like such a wide range of people just like pick up things about her looks and say it's like that's like that person or like that's like me. So it's not just like what race you portray your character as. It's honestly like the individual features that you want a wide range of because those are the things that we actually like nitpick about ourselves.
Do
So,
you, is it only physical features or are there certain aspects of like the personalities of the elite versus the people who live underground that, like the stereotypical, oh, if they have red hair, then they're angry all the time. Do you have any of those like personality traits that are related to the region that they're from that are more common in certain areas?
so I definitely have like regional cultures like the Far Eastern elite, which is like where you have the savannas and like the largest area of uh, cultivated lands. So those people, like overall the elite have this idea that beauty is a monochrome individual, and that's not you have to have this hair color and like this skin color and this eye color. It's your hair color, skin color, and eye color, and your clothes and makeup should all be the same color.
Whoa.
You should be so obviously that works better with like that's more obtainable with darker skin. So the people on the savannah are considered like these unobtainable beauties.
Mm.
Um, so, and like that's the fun thing about like designing your own like fantasy world. Like I said, our beauty standards and our culture doesn't carry over. You get to come up with your own stuff. So they define beauty in this region like very differently. Which yeah, you have the art who are a counterculture to that, with like bright colors. Like they'll have different colored hair and eyes and stuff, which is a statement against that. In the same way as like other countercultures to this will have will incorporate clashing colors just to make a point that they're not living up to the society's standards.
Mm.
But yeah, like because I haven't gotten like Zara, the first one I showed, is from the outskirts of that, where she has ancestry from that very idealized region, but not but she's a city girl and hasn't maintained the culture of it. And so she has this interesting like people from the Far East wouldn't like, and people from more central and western areas of the East would be wary of her because they'd think she was a snob because they're like, oh, you're from this perfect society with like this super, super wealthy and everyone who like worships at their feet. So it's, yeah, it does. Climate definitely plays into your world's economy, which plays into culture. So you'll definitely have people who look a certain way, have a certain culture, because that's tied together by the land they live on. So it's definitely interesting to think about. Like, of course, you can't have like good and evil associated with that, but there's different norms and a different outlook on life. So I have three other characters from that region who fit the whole monochrome image of beauty like to a T. One is Montauk. His parents moved away, so he's like out in the middle of nowhere, and everyone, but he's like this very tall, stern-looking black guy who like could be a model, but also like everyone just like looks up to like all the other guys in the village just like look up to him because he's like this tall and stoic. They're like, wow, that guy is cool. Let's make him our leader because he just feels so cool. And he's interesting because he is a very like quiet, stoic character, but he definitely has his feelings, and he's fighting against this stereotype that is assigned to him by the way he
Mm.
looks.
And
Um,
even though you're on a different planet, these are all very human things that we all go through. And I think that's another point in the world building is regardless of where you are, whether you're on Earth, like a series like Harry Potter, or you're somewhere completely different like Frey, to have characters that are still going through the same things that we go through makes it that much easier to engage in, like you were saying, the relatability. Because I
mhm.
know for me personally, without giving spoilers, that Zara, I relate really deeply to Zara, and that was before I really knew her character design, before you sculpted the full head and everything, just in what you put into the people, even though they're not human. Um, that's a really important aspect of the world building as well. And so it's it's really interesting how you can be on a completely different planet and still have these relatable moments.
Yeah, I mean, because like even if it's not exactly what you've gone through, like you'll latch on to the details or like the general outline of something that looks like what you faced, and you're like, oh, I I'm gonna identify with this character here. So, um, yeah, like that's like so often like characters written to represent like women and minorities are written as archetypes, and they just play up stereotypes, which isn't relatable at all. It, it's like it can be insulting, where it's like, wow, you really don't understand what I'm going through. So, like, first and foremost, make your characters characters and like you do justice to the world building. Like, if you're going to go over and showcase a culture, it's like think it through. Um, like, yeah, yes, you made this up yourself, but like, don't pour all your attention into like one society and just like gloss over the next, because that's just by contrast that's going to look like a weak point. And they're definitely going to like readers will notice it's like, you really didn't, I guess this was just like a stop on the way, you didn't really care about this group, why did you include
Like a
them?
side thought.
um, yeah.
Yeah. I not not trying to take over, but you mentioned Candy earlier, and something I realized I was working on the second book in which she travels a lot, and I had to stop, and it was like, wait, where is she going? You can't have a completely different planet and have somebody traveling a lot if you don't know where they're going. And so um, I, at this point, because it's a novella, I didn't go into the depth of all the culture. That's not what the story was about. But even just having like the stops
Mhm.
along the way of where she was going, I realized was a huge plot hole if I didn't have it all together. So um, I think that's something that a lot of like novice or amateur authors and writers kind of forget about, is that it's not just
Mhm.
one puzzle piece. There's a whole bunch of pieces to create one giant picture. Um,
Yeah,
and
like if you're going on a quest, like you want every place around the world to like be vivid. So even if you don't spend a lot of time there, like the time you spend has to like be significant to the book to include it.
And what, as far as your character design, because I know it's pretty unique, that you can write, sculpt, and illustrate. Do you come up with a like a sketched out character design before you start sculpting?
Yeah, it's definitely like I'll write out a character and then I'll draw them a couple times and I'll sculpt them and things always change when I sculpt them. It's like I never go over and like sculpt the character and it's like everything is exactly how I thought it would be initially. It's like no, it's like uh all the features just like adjust. Like they'll have the same general appearance. I've had characters that I've sculpted multiple times, just trying to get them right. Uh, Siren, I think four times. He's a character in The Tale of Essex, so he's an angel. I sculpted him four times, so I'm trying to like get the face I want. Because finding a face for a character is like on one hand you have this whole history to them, and on the other hand you have the impression you want them to give off. So like finding that balance can take some trial and error. Um and this works with like drawing too, but I find like with drawing, since you can choose which lines you include, you can gloss over stuff like, you know, the nose and the eyes, the lips. It tends to just be your style.
Mm.
It's a lot easier to have faces all look the same when you're drawing. Um, when you're making something in 3D, you really have to like come to terms. It's like, oh, I can't just like, I have to actually make this. So, and then that takes like, it takes 2 weeks if I'm like, if I stick to it, I can make a face in 2 weeks. And that's like sculpting to complete, like starting to completion where it's like painted and everything
Mm.
and has hair. So like that's 2 weeks where I'm like really thinking over every little detail about this. And then once I'm finished that, I have to like go back and like edit the story and like tweak the illustrations to like fit what I sculpted. And generally I try to sculpt before I do like the book illustrations just so like I have, because I draw a lot better when I have a reference to draw off of.
And then you have that consistency and stuff. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh, she looks completely different in this scene than she does on the cover of the book. My phone is about to die and I don't have a cord long enough to plug it in while we're doing this. So,
Yeah.
um,
I think we've had a good taco.
huh?
So
What?
I think we've had a good taco.
I think so as well. This was I just can't believe because I didn't explain at the beginning that this was initially just going to be a one time thing, and I'm really glad that we're going forward and we're able to do this on a monthly basis and really just sit and hash things out. So do you, before I take off, do you have anything left to add for somebody that might not be so certain where to even start with their world building, or some just little piece of advice?
Uh, I think I think for advice is like just remember that like there's no optimum looking person, and whatever fits your story and your environment that you crafted, like embrace that. Even if it doesn't like fit our understanding of beauty and this incredibly like our beauty standards are jacked up. Like, we think people with dark skin are terrible because our rich people got to stay inside and send other people outside to do work. And we hate people who look like they're from the Middle East because of like the Crusades and wanting to take their land. And like, really, all our beauty standards are based on oppressing people. So, like, understand that for what it is. Like, our beauty standards are jacked up, and you have a chance in your fantasy world to come up with your own idea of beauty, and you should make that fit the world. So,
Elise, I'm so happy we were able to do this today. So for everybody watching next week on June 13th, I'm gonna sit down with Lindsay and we're gonna hash out her world. I'm not positive on my date yet for July, but I am gonna come and talk about my stuff. So that way I don't take over other people's episodes. And then in August, we're all three of us going to come together and talk about world building through lyrics and poetry. So I hope that everybody enjoyed this first episode, and everybody have a fantastic day.
hey, hey,
Bye.